during the 2010s, it seemed like every single new Christian music artist that came on the scene was defaulting to the pop genre. And even some established artists, it seemed, were shifting their styles to become more pop. And whether you like that for your particular favorite artist or not, an overloaded music genre is not a good thing for the industry as a whole. One of the artists that would kind of help remind everybody that pop was not the only option was Zach Williams. Now, today we're going to be taking a look at Zach Williams' album Chainbreaker. Oh, wait. Am I talking about the Chainbreaker EP, the Chainbreaker LP, or the Chainbreaker LP Deluxe Edition? I mean, dear Lord.
Frieza plans to destroy Vegeta!
Wait, my son, the planet or me?
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm going to be taking a look in this video at really just the standalone album, and I'm going to release another video that talks about the deluxe tracks. And normally I like to talk about the deluxe tracks in the same review, but I have a reason for doing that this time. So Chainbreaker, the original album, was put out in 2017 by Essential Records, part of the Provident label group, which in turn is also part of Sony Music. So there's 10 tracks on the original album, and we're going to start off with Chainbreaker, the title track, and this is probably the track that most people are familiar with the most off of this. This was like the debut single or whatever. It starts off with an acoustic pop kind of a sound, and I say it has a pop sound mostly because of just what the drum beat reminds me of. By the end, though, it's adding like a gospel feel behind it, and there really is a lot of gospel within Zach Williams' style. And that feel is generated further by the background singers. They do a really nice job helping set the style. The singer extends an invitation to the listener to find a better life in Jesus, who frees us from our restrictions and sins and different all the other things that are kind of self-implied. It's a very good song. It's one that's used a lot now in your worship services and different things like that. So it's become quite a thing, and it's a very powerful song. But it's also a song that I feel is very safe within its box too. It's a very safe song in terms of what can be sold via the radio. It's a very radio friendly song. Track 2 is Old Church Choir. And this one has also got some pop. I know this is kind of contradictory to my intro, but believe me, it'll change. This is, out of all of the songs, this is the most poppy sound that is on this album, but it also still maintains that gospel feel to it. It's actually really cool to listen to. The singer is talking about this feeling of joy that he equates to being like an old church choir that he carries within him. So the lyrics are saying, I've got an old church choir buried in my soul. That's the kind of feeling that he has right now. It's a fun song to listen to. It really is a fun song to listen to. It's like, I remember the very, very first time I started listening to this album, like back when it came out. Old Church Choir kind of sort of stood out to me back then. A little bit less nowadays, but it's still a very nice listen. Track 3 is Survivor, and I describe this one as folk. I feel Jesus Freak Hideout does not classify Zach Williams as being a part of folk music, but I don't know, there are just moments in some of these songs where it sounds like folk to me, and I make the comparison to Ren Collective because there's some moments in his songs where it sounds like something that Ren Collective does. Oh yeah, it also has some instrumental stuff in it too, which makes it feel nice, and then the fullness of the song happens in the chorus. The singer promises God for the transformation in his... praises God, rather. I'm sorry, I can't even read my notes. Praises God for the transformation in his life. God rescued him, hence he is a survivor. That's where you get the title from. Again, very good song. Very worth to listen to. It's a very... I'll say, yeah, it has a catchy chorus, especially by the time you get to the end. It's like, you pulled me out of the fire, I'm a survivor. Yeah, see, everybody knows that part. That's the hook of the song, in my opinion. Track 4 is To the Table, and this one is kind of we'll call it an acoustic soul. That's what I have written down. As you kind of feel some soul element, but it doesn't have. It's really more in the vocals and everything else, not so much the music itself. There's no song on here that I would really classify as a ballad per se, but this one, even though the song is not between singer and God, this does have a bit of deepness, so maybe even a little bit of intimacy or whatever. But it's a song that does take itself very, very seriously. It's not a lighthearted song like Old Church Choir. The guitar really dominates on this one. There is a possible violin kind of mixed in the background, and according to the review on Jesus Freak Hideout, he mentioned something about a slider guitar. I don't know what that is. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but that may or may not be present. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with those things, but I just thought I would mention that. The song is an invitation to God's table where we can relinquish our burdens and take part in God's provisions. And, it's a song like when I was listening to it in my car and everything, by the time the chorus starts to roll around, and if you're familiar with the song, you just you can't really help but join in and just, I really do enjoy this song. I mean, it's not my top favorite and everything, but I mean, I don't know, it's such a pleasant listen. It's such a good song. Track 5 is My Liberty, and I would describe this one as kind of a folk Americana sort of mix. Again, it's got moments similar to like a Ren Collective folk song, but there's a lot of other background stuff happening that to me gives it a little bit of an identity beyond a folk identity. And to try to classify it, I looked up the definition of what Americana was, and then I was listening to the song. I was like, you know what? I could kind of see how this would fit under the Americana definition. To some degree, yes. The song speaks of a hope for those astray, and it shifts later into a personal testimony of the singer proclaiming Jesus as the liberty from the grave, which of course he is. This one is a good song, but it's probably, if I had to pick a least favorite on the album, it's probably My Liberty. But it's still a very good song. It's still not one that I necessarily skip over when I've got my iPod on shuffle, and that's something I'll talk more about later. But yeah, My Liberty's not my first pick from this album, but it's still a very, very solid song. It's very pleasant to listen to. Track 6 is Song of Deliverance. This is a kind of a southern rock sort of song, the intro actually, even though it really doesn't sound anything like it, for whatever reason, it reminds me of Bon Jovi's song "Wanted Dead or Alive," and I say that I guess it's sort of the atmosphere between the two. It just kind of makes me think of it. It's an edgy start to it. It's too edgy to be country. That's why you can't, even though it's got a southern sound to it, it's got too much grit in it to be country. It's like a good sort of comparison, I guess, is if go and listen to Third Day's song Surrender and add like just kind of picture that with a little bit more grit to it, and that's kind of what you get with this one. And I love this song. Singer expresses his desire to no longer be a prisoner to the mistakes he's made. One of the best things about this song for me is how Zach sings the song. I mean, the music is pretty good, but where this song really just does it for me is how Zach's delivery on this is just amazing. I love how it sounds. I love the direction he takes with some of the vocal phrasings and everything. It's just oh my lord, this is actually, I'll say it, this is my favorite out of the album. Even though I love every track, this is the song where if I had to pick a clear-cut favorite, had to, it would be this one. Track 7 is also an amazing song. This is Fear is a Liar, and it's kind of a softer, if there's a song that could be classified as a ballad of sorts, I suppose it would be this one. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to describe the musical styling behind it, but it's pretty heavy on guitar strumming, and it's joined by the full band later, just to kind of give you an idea of how the song structure is. And so the singer is combating the lies told to the listener about themselves, and is also warning the listener of the dangers of fear. For a lot of people, if it's not Chainbreaker that's their favorite or they're most familiar with off of this album, it's this one, Fear is a Liar, because this one got played on the radio a lot and is very, very, very good song. It's just, it just touches a lot of very important topics that a lot of people need to hear, especially in a time like this. Not to say that the coronavirus or anything is not something that needs to be taken seriously. It is, but I think also at the same time, a song like this can help remind people that there is somebody else, something else, somebody else that is in greater control over all of the situation. So don't give in to fear, in other words. Fantastic song. If you've never listened to it before, I please encourage you to go listen to it. Track 8 is Everything Changed. I classify this as a lighter southern rock. It's still kind of southern rockish, but it's got a lighter, brighter tone to it. The song is testimony of before and after asking Jesus into the singer's life. And this is a very good song. My favorite part of the song is actually the energy in the bridge. The bridge is probably the best part of the whole song, in my opinion. Very, very good song. Not really much else to say about it. It's worth listening to. Track 9 is Revival, and I classify this as Southern worship because this is... I suppose I classify it as that because to me it's like a praise and worship song. It's like a song put out by your Chris Tomlins or Aaron Schuss or whoever, and with a Southern twist. Obviously, it's got Southern style in it, but it really just is a worship song. It's deep and intimate. It's got plenty of instrumentation. It's a similar message to the previous song, Everything Changed, but this time, though, the focus is put on the life-restoring nature of Jesus. That's where the two separate. And I don't know what it was. This song, before this review, I kind of casually looked at this song, but I don't know what it was during this review. This song just like really kind of stuck out as like, wow, this is probably one of the most underrated tracks on this album, I think. And the comment section on the YouTube page for the song kind of sort of seemed to agree with me. It's like everybody who was commenting on it just loved the song. And it's like the chorus, oh my lord, the chorus is so good on this song. It's like if I ever have the chance to, lead a worship service or even just like with Zach's permission, if I could just like open a concert with just this chorus. Oh, wow, this is amazing. And then the final track on the album is So Good to Me. Now, you would think when you start listening to this, it's just like, oh, it's a nice way to close out the album and everything. No, this is not a throwaway type of closer. This is actually still really good. Acoustic, folkish kind of style, but it's mostly acoustic because there's really not a whole lot of background stuff going on with it. This is also a worship song, and it marvels at the actions of God in relation to God's people. So God's reaction in relation to His people. It's funny because really this song, you're not the album doesn't expect you to necessarily like this song, but you go and listen to it and listen to some of the things that Zach does with the voice, with his voice, the way he sings, the lines at certain points, like, the way he sings, "You Are So Good to Me" and everything. It's just, I don't know. It's just like, I'm supposed to look at this as a throwaway closer, but it's not a throwaway closer. It's good enough, I would definitely sing this in a church service. I would sing all of these in a church service, really. There's really none of them that I would not feel comfortable, singing in that environment, which is always a good thing. But I don't know. I just, before I sound any more stupid than I already do gushing about this album, let me just say every single track on here is absolutely like awesome. And it does something for me that other albums, even albums like Sidewalk Prophets that I've reviewed in the past, looking back on Sidewalk Prophets, I've probably actually gave them a little bit higher score than they deserved. And I'm not saying that the albums aren't still good. No, they are very good. And each and every individual song on those albums are spectacular. But I don't find myself revisiting every single track off those albums like I thought maybe I once did. As of right now, every single track that's on this original album for Chainbreaker, I would most definitely revisit at any time. Like I said, I have a pretty solid favorite in Song of Deliverance, but when I was trying to come up with a list of favorites for this album, I really had a hard time distinguishing what should be on there and what should be left out, because each and every single one of these songs is so good. Just an absolutely fantastic debut, and this is a sound that is just desperately needed in this unbalanced pop and synth worship music world. Zach has just created something truly memorable. It's just a mix of rock, soul, and folk. This is such a treasure to listen to for me. And I also have a suggestion if Zach ever were to hear this. I doubt it, but I would love to hear with his voice a pure blues style song. There's you could argue maybe there's even some blues elements in a couple different songs that I didn't mention here, but I really would just to see what it sounds like. If it failed, then it failed, but I would love to hear what his voice sounds like doing a pure blues, like B.B. King kind of blues song. I just think that would sound incredible, and his voice is incredible. I mean, his voice is freaking amazing. It's a southern, raspy kind of voice, but when he sings with it, it just has this perfect blend of soul and rock, and so you kind of mix all that together. It's like it's very much like Mac Powell's voice from Third Day, but the register is a little bit higher than Mac's register. That's really the closest thing I can compare it to. His delivery is near perfect with every single song. I mean, this is an absolute amazing performance on his part, and his voice really for me kind of carries the album. In the parts where you might call the weaker moments of the album, his voice is what keeps it from being not boring. And as far as the rest of the album goes, I love there's hidden in each album. It'd be crazy to talk about all of them in this review. I encourage you to go and listen for these. There's set pieces in some of these in a lot of these songs that really give the songs their own respective identities and personalities, which is perfect for for re-listening to songs and for helping them stand out among not only other songs in the market at the time, but then also his own future stuff, whatever comes out. It's like you can separate it more distinctively between future releases and then what he started off with. I can't gush about this album enough. I love it. I'm going to give it a 4.8 out of 5. And like I said, it's about the same score as what the Sidewalk Prophets albums are, but I feel, kind of looking back on it, I feel like this album is even more deserving of a higher score like that than even the Sidewalk Prophets albums. And again, those albums are fantastic, but just there's not a track on this original album that I would even really consider hitting the skip button over right now. If I were listening to it on my iPod, it's just so good. Great music, amazing lyrics. I mean, it's just another thing I admire about it, not to keep gushing, but I like how the album changes itself up enough to keep from overselling a particular genre. It's just like, just when you start to think that it's like, oh, this might go one direction, and then another song comes around and keeps it fresh enough that you could listen to the album straight through and again not be bored or tired mentally from hearing the same kind of music over and over again. I really appreciate an album that can be self-aware like that. But anyway, this is the reason why I wanted to talk about the deluxe tracks in a different album, because I'm well over 20 minutes at this point, and I still have 5 other tracks to talk about in a deluxe version. But I just love this original one so much that it just had to get its own separate review. But in the next video, I'm going to talk as quickly as I can about the deluxe tracks and give the deluxe version of this album its own separate rating, something I don't usually do. And then after that, probably going to be looking... it's right now it's a toss-up between going ahead and looking at Zach's second album, Rescue Story, or taking a look at For King and Country's third album, Burn the Ships. Both those 2 albums are going to be what is looked at next regardless. It's just which one comes first, I'm not really sure. Probably Rescue Story, just to kind of go ahead and keep the theme of Zach Williams going on right now, and then maybe finish up For King and Country, and then after that, kind of going wherever I feel needs to be gone after that. But those 2 albums are definitely what's going to be coming up in my next reviews. So look forward to that. I have a lot to say about the both of them, and I've already started listening to them in preparation for the reviews and everything. I actually got my physical copy of Rescue Story in the mail just the other day, so it's gonna be good. I think I'm really looking forward to talking about both of these albums. But anyway, I've been talking for far too long. Thank you guys so much for listening, and again, please check out this album. It is entirely worth your listen to. If you have any albums that you would like to hear me review and talk about, then please leave a comment suggesting it, and I'll see if I can't maybe take a look at it. In the meantime, though, stay safe as long as this whole Corona thing is still going on. Otherwise, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and as always, take care.